just stare at your flex spot and beat yourself up over a decision between Craig Reynolds and Jahan Dotson? Well, with 6 teams on bye and every player you've ever loved injured, that's a real concern heading into week 7. Unless you play DFS, there are much better options to help you build some winning lineups. Let us help you. What is up? Good evening and welcome to a very special live edition of DFS Academy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. With me, as always, Kelly Singh, Austin Amandolia. We are here to help you guys build some wonderful Week 7 lineups. Kelly's here to help with the GPP. Austin's here to help with the cash game. Together, we build some really, really nice lineups, but I'm going to let these guys talk for a second. Kelly, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. Send help. Just kidding.
Yes, I was going to say, you guys both have little funny things underneath right now. So for folks who don't know, we normally do not go live with this show. We normally record on Thursdays because, to be honest, a live DFS show, not that great. And speaking of that, we're going to get to your questions after the show. So Caesar, I see you in the chat. We appreciate it. We are going to work this just like it's a pre-record. That's not to say we're not going to help you. When the show is over, if these guys still have time, they're going to help me answer your questions. But every question will get answered, will get up on the screen. Austin, you're very behind.
Yeah. So funny thing about this, I put this little description in when I did my home league recording last night.
And now you're still very behind.
I missed 3 weeks of my home league recording, so here we are. But also, I've been like scrambling last minute, getting all my player picks in and whatnot. So it just applies.
You didn't even notice during the Mock It Like It's Hot season, I had my home league stuff. My team name in my home league is Part-Time Ninjas, and that is what it read for my name for the entire show. And you and I think Josh was actually on the show. Neither one of you even noticed that it just said Part-Time Ninjas the entire time we were doing the show. I noticed.
I noticed. I just didn't say anything about it.
Well, call me out when I screw up, plain and simple. All right, folks, as I mentioned, we are here to help you guys build cash GPP lineups. They're going to give you guys their favorite picks throughout the show. And then at the end of the show, we're going to go ahead and answer some questions. If you guys have any questions, DFS or otherwise, a couple of reminders off the top of the show. You can play with us. We don't just talk DFS, we play it as well. There are links in the description of this video that you'll also find in Austin's article, Kelly's article on Saturdays, articles all over Club Fantasy regarding DFS, where we run small tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel. They are not routinely filling up yet, but if they start to fill up, we'll make them bigger, more money, and the winner gets their name announced on the show every week. So on top of winning a little bit of money, it's only a $2 buy-in. You get to hear your name on the show. It's going to be awesome. And then just one final reminder, I am not ignoring you. I mean, I am ignoring you, but I'm telling you I'm ignoring you. We are not going to be answering questions during the show. We're going to focus on the show sheet, and then we're going to get back to you guys at the end of the show. Our first segment we call Answers to the Test. It is last week's winning lineup and slate breaker. So last week's Millionaire Maker scored 228.38 fantasy points. Of all the lineups I have seen, this one is the weirdest. If you would have told me this was the Millionaire Maker lineup at the beginning of the season, I would have had you committed. Desmond Ridder at quarterback, Kieran Williams, Raheem Mostert at running back, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London at wide receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver, and the Vikings defense. The slate breaker, obviously, Raheem Mostert, 37.2 points on DraftKings, 32.7 on FanDuel. So let's start with Kelly. When you look at just a weird lineup, do you have any takeaways when you look at a lineup like this?
This person must have had a crystal ball, is the only thing I can say. Obvious, Raheem Mostert and Cooper Kupp make the most sense. And then I feel like the Rashid Shaheed came into play much like it did on many of my lineups that did pay, looking at value. And like that guy does get a decent amount of targets. The rest of it, I'm surprised they were able to squeeze Kyron Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. And the Vikings defense makes zero sense to me, but good on them.
Now, Austin, you and I, we've taken a shining to ranking defense and special teams very well in Fantasy Pros. I think we're both in the top percentage of ranking defense and special teams. I didn't see the Vikings or the Las Vegas Raiders coming last week. So that one kind of threw me off there.
Well, the Las Vegas Raiders we probably should have seen coming because of the New England Patriots. But yeah, the Vikings definitely did not see this coming. One thing I will say about this lineup, only 228 points. Like, I don't think that's going to win you the Million Maker most weeks, right? And one thing I did see about the person that won the Million Maker, they had over 100 entries. So yeah, they had a crystal ball,
Interesting.
but they also had a lot of attempts. So they got to get a little creative with some of their lineups.
So, and that's what I was thinking when I saw this lineup is how many lineups deep were you when you're like, I'm going to play Desmond Ridder, Drake London, Kyle Pitts in a triple stack. Like, good Lord.
This was the week for Kyle Pitts. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Crystal ball.
Yeah, we were certainly not expecting the Kyle Pitts week. Now, Austin, you also noted that Raheem Mostert was only 72% rostered in your DraftKings contest.
Only 72%. Yeah. So I talk about this in the A-list this week. I hope you played Raheem Mostert in cash, because if you didn't, it was rough. What was notable about this to me was the difference in the DraftKings contest rostership and the FanDuel one. So on my FanDuel contest, he was 24% rostered in my big 50-50 I do. And again, bouncing back to DraftKings, everybody I played in head-to-heads had Raheem Mostert. So if you didn't play him, you were going to be buried quickly. But on FanDuel, it literally, I played 5 head-to-head contests on FanDuel. 2 of my opponents had Raheem Mostert, 3 did not.
Yeah.
The 3 that did not, I beat. The 2 that did beat me because of other players. So
now, were you playing him?
Yes, I was playing him. So this was the week, and on FanDuel, I think people just didn't want to pay up. So
that's what I was going to ask. I remember there was a pretty decent sized salary discrepancy between FanDuel and DraftKings on that.
But it still paid out, and I think this is one of those things, like, even when it's a really chalky answer, that's what you need in cash. And honestly, even if Raheem Mostert had failed on DraftKings, if 72% of people have him, like, who cares? It's a free spot at that point. You might as well roster him.
Such a good point. If everybody's playing him, we all fail together. So our first segment, when we get into week 7, we call top of the class. These are the players 8K or above that we are still targeting to win. Kelly, I'm going to start with you because it's been a little while since I've seen you guys throw a quarterback in here.
Yeah. I was gonna go with Cooper Kupp as well. I wrote about Cooper Kupp, but when I saw Austin got Cooper Kupp, I'm like, let's do something else. I like Patrick Mahomes this week, particularly because he's been on quite a tear with passing yards. Last week was his 43rd career game with 300 yards or more, and that happens to be the most in NFL history since the last time this record was broken in 2017. So Patrick Mahomes feels a little untouchable, which feels gross also at the same time. Don't send me hate mail. I just find him so unlikable, but I like it here because the rostership is pretty low right now, projected around 7%, and that's likely due to the very high salary, and there are plenty other very capable QB candidates, but this is one to bank on, I feel like, for sure.
Interestingly enough, when I was doing my rankings, I believe I had him as my number 1, where you say there are other candidates, but this feels like a week where I feel much more comfortable paying up for him.
I agree. And that's why I wrote up on him. It felt icky, but I thought the data just points that direction. It's just so dang pricey, but we've got some other options for you today to help make that manageable.
What I love about you guys is when you do go super pricey, and Austin, we're going to talk about super pricey here in a second. When you guys do go super pricey, you always give them some nice bargain players to look at later. Austin, I'm going to ask you this question because I harp on this every time I see it. Cooper Kupp is 9,700 on FanDuel and 9,500 on DraftKings. Is he overpriced on DraftKings or underpriced on Fan? Like, I don't understand why they're so close when there's that $10,000 salary gap. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's just underpriced everywhere. Frankly.
Okay.
Like this just is like a smash play. I don't care how expensive he is this week. If he had gotten above 10K, we could talk. But on both sides, I think his salary is like Yeah, it's a lot, but there are some other ways to get cheap, and he's been so good since he came back. He scores 20 points his first game back from injury, 30 points the week after that, and now he's going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're giving up the fourth most points to opposing wide receivers right now. And the great thing about this week for Cooper Kupp is there's no Kyron Williams. There's no whatever the backup was that was getting touches in the running back room that I can't remember. Ronnie Rivers. I got there.
Ronnie Rivers.
There's no Ronnie Rivers.
They had IR.
Yeah, they had to sign some folks off of the practice squad. So I think they're just going to pepper the receivers with targets this week. And if Cooper Kupp, like, he easily get 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Easily. Like, that's like, that's nothing for Cooper Kupp. And so if he does that, he's paying off his salary everywhere. I expect him to be very highly played in cash tournaments. This is kind of like Raheem Mostert last week, where I'm like, you got to play him. And so I'm going to focus on figuring out how to fit him into my roster based on some other players elsewhere, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I'm taking Cooper Kupp. I'm not afraid of the price this week.
Both of you guys mentioned quarterbacks. Obviously, Kelly mentioned Patrick Mahomes already. I noticed neither one of you has Matthew Stafford. And when I was looking at lineups this week, Stafford was a guy I wanted to find a way to get into my lineup, but I didn't feel comfortable with it either. If we love Cooper Kupp and we hate the Rams running game, Austin, is Stafford a viable option?
Yes, I do. He's not on the show sheet for me explicitly. I will talk about him a little bit later because there's some interesting pricing there with some other quarterbacks. But if you read the A-list, he's already in there. So I'm definitely in on Matt Stafford, particularly on FanDuel. DraftKings, it's a little bit tougher. There are some cheaper quarterbacks I'm more interested in there on DraftKings, but I feel like he's definitely viable in cash. Now, Kelly can speak more to tournaments. My initial take is probably not in tournaments. Like, even when Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have been popping off, Stafford has only surpassed 20 points once on DraftKings, and it was barely. It was like 20.2, which is not really the ceiling that you need from your quarterback in tournaments.
Right. Yeah, he's projected right now at 16.9, and he's sitting already on 7% of rosters, with the highest rosters projected at 10%. So he's pretty widely owned, and I think it's because of that stack factor.
Okay.
So I'm not super high on it for me this week,
so
but I do have him in my fantasy lineups.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is a situation where you don't need to force yourself to stack. I'm gonna stick with that question, Kelly. With Patrick Mahomes and sort of that like ambiguous receiving core they have, is there a stack? I quickly glanced through the notes. I don't think I missed anything. Is there a stack that you are, as soon as you put Mahomes in, you're finding a way? Maybe Travis Kelce, but man, that's a lot of salary. Rashee Rice, someone like that.
Yeah, I do like the Rashee Rice. That's one of my favorite value plays usually, just because he does get the touches, it feels like, recently, but I haven't actively gone out and stacked. I'm higher on the Seahawks this week in particular for stacking. So I didn't really pay attention to that.
I know Austin's big on the Seahawks this week too, after reading the A-list this morning. Next category we call band nerds. These are the good students that spend a little bit too much extra time on their instruments. Long and short of it, these are our players who are priced between $6,000 and $8,000, just not quite dedicated enough to make it to the top of the class. Austin, keep us going.
So we are going to start with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Who is $6K on DraftKings and $7K on FanDuel. So this is one of the quarterbacks that I like as an alternative to Matt Stafford because he is cheaper than Matthew Stafford on DraftKings. However, he is actually more expensive than Matthew Stafford on FanDuel. On FanDuel, I'm probably going Stafford. But for DraftKings, I'm going with Geno Smith. And the basic line of reasoning here is Arizona is the fourth worst defense against quarterbacks this year. They're giving up the fourth most fantasy points. Similarly, they're giving up a lot of points to receivers. They're giving up a lot of points to running backs. They're giving up a lot of points. So I like the Seahawks all around. I don't think I'm going to talk about Kenneth Walker. I talked about him in the A-list. I will say that I am probably not stacking Geno Smith and Kent Walker in cash.
Our first after school fight because Kelly is stacking them, but we'll talk about that in a second. Keep going, buddy.
Well, we can talk because Kelly, that's a great tournament play, but for cash, that makes me uneasy because if Kenneth Walker scores 3 or 4 touchdowns, which hopefully he does, unless some of those are receiving touchdowns, that's going to kill Geno Smith's upside and his floor for cash. So I prefer to only have one of those in my lineup, but I definitely think Geno Smith is cash viable. There's a potential pathway for both Smith and Walker to make it in cash, but that type of build is something I typically avoid in cash settings.
There you go. Keep going with Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Aaron Jones. This is another great play this week. He is 68K on DraftKings and 7,700 on FanDuel. And here's the deal. Denver Broncos. We know what the Denver Broncos are capable of. They're capable of getting 350 rushing yards put up on them. Now, I'm trying to not buy into this outlier too much, but I looked at just the last 3 games, and in 2 of the last 3 games, they've also given up over 150 rushing yards. The one thing here is that Aaron Jones is coming off of a hamstring injury, and so there's always a chance that he can re-aggravate that. However, it is off a bye week, so I am hopeful that he will have gotten some extra rest and be more healthy because of that. And he's also still getting pass game utilization. I mean, he got 4 targets in his 1 start this year, so I think he's a great play against a lackluster Denver Broncos defense.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. In this category, I've been looking at your guys' picks. This category, you guys are really just speaking to the conundrums I've been running into with building my lineup this entire week. Just like figuring out between what I want to do with the Seahawks and what I want to do with the Packers. So Kelly, you obviously still like Geno Smith, and in tournaments, you don't have a problem stacking him with his own running back.
I like this a lot. I like the way it looks, especially if you're willing, if you have the pockets to play it on FanDuel, because you're going to be dealing with less competition due to the higher price tag. He's looking to bring in roughly 16 fantasy points per game, no matter where you play him. If you play him on DraftKings, Kenneth Walker III is definitely going to be on most of the rosters. And here's the thing. He is on his 5th game in a row where he could score a rushing touchdown. So he's good for a touchdown is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So this is what I would like to see. I feel like Geno Smith is the perfect complement this week at this price. And that's why I like the 2 of them together. In my article over at Player Profiler, I also was torn in sharing with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf is still questionable this week. Tyler Lockett is not listed as questionable currently today. So those are also other less expensive plays if that's what you're into stacking.
Well, and see, that's the debate I was having is you guys are going to bring him up on the show later. Spoiler alert. For my cash lineups, I'm really in on Jordan Love. I'm really in on Geno Smith. I'm really in on Ken Walker. I want to be in on Aaron Jones. If I'm going Jordan Love, I'm super down with the Luke Musgrave stack. If I'm going Geno, I don't know which wide receiver to put in there. So to me, it's like, if I don't know which wide receiver to put in, I might as well just go with Jordan Love because I know what stack I want to do. And, Occam's razor, the easiest solution is the best solution. So.
Or you could play your other rolls out and then see what's left. And if you only have a Tyler Lockett budget, then that solves your problem because he is looking at around 13 fantasy points per game this week on each platform. And you're looking at a mid-range rostership if that's part of your strategy.
There you go. Austin, you were going to chime in as well.
I was just going to say I may have the cash lineup for you because I got a bunch of those players in my lineup we'll talk about later on in the show. So
yeah, I find when you guys announce your lineups at the end of the show, other than defense, I never seem to agree with you guys on defense. So I'm going to be interested to see who you guys pick this week. Next category is bookworms, guys. These are the $4,000 to $6,000 players that we are targeting. They're underestimated, but they can really make a difference in your lineups this week. Kelly, go ahead and get us started with a very, very familiar name if you are following Kelly in Phoenix on Twitter.
My boyfriend, Mark Andrews.
Yes.
The Ravens are facing the Lions this week, and the Lions, I was actually being pretty generous, saying they were ranked 26th in the league and allowing points to tight ends. I was double checking my numbers, and another source I checked has them dead last in allowing the most points to tight ends. I find this salary to be very manageable. 5.7K on DraftKings, 6.9K on FanDuel, projected for around 13 points on DraftKings, 11 points on FanDuel. And here's the fun fact. This could be his third straight game with 65 or more yards, which, mark it down, could be a very fun prop bet for you.
Yeah, I think it all started when we thought he was going to do so terribly against the Browns and ended up with some egg on our face there. Then Mark Andrews came alive. So
it's pretty interesting with Mark Andrews. He's the tight end 2 on the season, but this has been his lowest target share since his rookie season. It has been his lowest receiving grade since his rookie year, and it's the third lowest pass attempts offense. So how is he still the tight end 2? It's that massive upside. He makes it happen.
I was going to say, I think that's a really fair point that he's the tight end 2. Not great numbers. He's coming down to earth, but at least they're not pricing him incorrectly either. They're not asking us to pay astronomical prices. And then you have a running back you like.
I do. Yeah. I have a running back this week, and that is Javonte Williams. I actually had to double check this score like a million times because it seems so inexpensive. 5.4K on DraftKings, 6.K on FanDuel, leading the team in rushing yards last week with 52. Yeah. And he has had, out of 4 of the 5 games he's played this season, 40 or more rushing yards. So again, solid numbers, solid, what do we call that? Good vibes going into this game. Trending upwards, trending stability. Projected for around 11 points this week, 9 or 10 on FanDuel, just 3% rostership on DraftKings also, and 6% on FanDuel, and that super surprises me because of the salary and because the Packers are not great at defending running backs.
No, I like that. And I remember last year the Packers were giving up a ton of points to running backs, and I don't think their defense markedly improved. We had the ability to watch Javonte Williams actually before we were recording this show last week, and I thought he looked really good on the field, but obviously the Broncos are a very bad team. Kelly, is there any concern with the Packers, who, I mean, they haven't looked tip-top? Is there any concern that Javonte Williams gets game scripted out of this, or do you think that do you believe the Broncos are going to keep this as a close game, or Javonte Williams is just going to be more involved?
I think that there's a chance that we'll see Javonte Williams just be more involved because of the fact that the Packers haven't been great at defending that run game there. So I'm playing the odds here and just hopeful that things stick to the script.
There you go. No, I like it. Austin, speaking of running backs who kind of underperformed, this guy immediately lost his job, but after a couple of injuries, seems to have put himself back into the limelight in Chicago.
Yeah, so we got Foreman this week, 4,800 on DraftKings and 6,300 on FanDuel. And honestly, this is a salary savings move because I am paying up for Cooper Kupp. Kenneth Walker, like, I'm probably playing him in cash, and he's not, I mean, he's only 7K on DraftKings, but that's like still above like that average that you need per player. So I'm trying to find ways to save money, and Foreman gives me a good option. Roschon Johnson has officially been rolled out, which I think is good for making sure that Foreman can get at least 15 to 20 touches. The thing is, he's probably not going to get pass game utilization, so we really do need him to fall into the end zone. But also, he's shown the ability to have like 100-yard rushing days back in Carolina, which would be really nice if he could do that. Also, Las Vegas is the 4th worst defense against running backs right now, which is good. They're allowing the 4th most fantasy points.
Yeah, didn't they just give up a touchdown to each of the very, very poorly played Patriots running backs?
So, yeah, which was really nice for my Ezekiel Elliott over 4.5 rushing touchdowns on the season.
There you go.
I would have loved for him to have gotten a couple in that game because he needs to make up some ground, but whatever. Yeah, so, you know, if they're giving up rushing touchdowns to the Patriots, been a little bit garbage this year, like, I feel good about Foreman this week.
Yeah, I like that. Keep going.
yeah, we'll move on next to Drake London. Finally, the Falcons are doing some things that make me feel really nice about their offense. We've been waiting for all of a sudden Arthur Smith to be like, yeah, this guy that I drafted in the top 10, we're going to use him. No, but seriously, he's been good. Tampa Bay is not great against receivers. They're giving up, they're in the bottom 10 in terms of points allowed to receivers. And he's only 5,100 on DraftKings. DraftKings does, we've talked about this before where DraftKings, they're kind of slow to change their salaries. He's a little more expensive on FanDuel. He's at 6,900, but he's just getting so much target volume and he's been getting so much of the target share that I feel good about the odds that he can hit his salary this week, especially because Atlanta, they are actually underdogs in this matchup by 2.5 points, which it's hilarious to watch NFC South matchups and figure out who's going to be the underdog because they're all underdogs. But I like the target share. I think if he can get in like 7 catches, he's probably getting 70 yards off of that, 60, 70 yards off of that. And we're feeling pretty good about him in cash.
Yeah, I'm not feeling good about the question mark next to Jordan Love's name on this next bullet point, Austin.
Yeah, so I was like, Jordan Love? Question mark? Are we feeling him this week in cash? It's weird because Joel Worth, our contributor at Club Fantasy, is a big fan of Jordan Love, and he got me bought in on him before the season began. I even traded for him in Dynasty. I'm a little nervous based on what I've seen recently, but I'm gonna buy the post-bye week hype a little bit and say that they've had 2 weeks to create a good game plan against a lackluster Denver Broncos defense, and that he's going to be able to throw the ball all over the town. He's only $5,800 on DraftKings. I really like him more on DraftKings. I would probably only play him on DraftKings because on FanDuel, this is what's wild to me. This is why I mentioned earlier that Matt Stafford would come up in this show, because Jordan Love is $7,800 on FanDuel. He is the 6th most expensive quarterback on FanDuel. He is more expensive than both Geno Smith and Matthew Stafford. I do not understand what got into FanDuel's algorithm this week to make them think that Jordan Love needed to be the 6th highest quarterback. So I'm not playing him. I'm not touching him on FanDuel. Do all your Aaron Jones shenanigans there, because that's not where I am. That's not where I'm going.
So I promise you, I'm giving away my lineup, if you will, but you guys give away your lineups at the end of the show. I built my lineup on DraftKings first. It was a Jordan Love lineup. And so I normally go to FanDuel and I start to try to build something similar and see how the salary works out. When I saw the Jordan Love to Geno Smith to Matt Stafford price gap, I was like, nope, going Geno Smith over here. So this will be the first week where I'm like pretty wildly different between the two apps, and I'm going to be interested to see how that shakes out. But yeah, I agree completely. You get to build different players on each app if you play in both contests with us. What? 2 contests? Yes. One on DraftKings, one on FanDuel, each $2 to enter. Right now, they are capped at 12 players. If we start to fill up every week, we will make those bigger. We're not filling up, but the great news is there's auto resize. So someone's going to get paid and someone's going to get their name mentioned at the end of the show. Speaking of my name mentioned during the show, my favorite category, C's get degrees. These are the punt plays of the week, less than $4,000. When we mention that salary, we're typically talking about DraftKings. It's a little hard for them to get that cheap on FanDuel. Austin, keep us going, because we just talked about Jordan Love. While you may not be in love with Jordan Love, I think you like one of his players.
Yeah, I am in love with Luke Musgrave this week. He is $3,300 on DraftKings and $5K on FanDuel. The $3,300 on DraftKings is really nice because I'm playing Cooper Kupp, so I have to save money somewhere.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Denver is the worst defense against tight ends. Like, we've been talking about how bad they are against running backs because we watched the Miami Dolphins just obliterate them. But they've been averaging 17 points per game to the tight end position in DraftKings scoring, which is
and that
incredible.
Wasn't the Miami Dolphins.
yeah, because like their tight end. Oh, Durham Smythe might have done a little something.
Nah, it was. I've actually researched this for Luke Musgrave as my stream of the week. It was Travis Kelce. I'm shipping them, man. Travis Kelce, but our Club Fantasy favorite Cole Kmet went 85 yards and 2 touchdowns on Denver and just ruined their season. So
there you go. Good old Cole Kmet. No, but I really like the matchup this week for Luke Musgrave. Also, this is a pretty tight spread right now, and the over-under is actually pretty high. It's one of the higher under-overs on the main slate, set at 45 this week. So, expect it to be a decently high-scoring game and 1.5-point spread. So, close game, so it should be a decent amount of passing involved. And I expect Luke Musgrave to have the opportunity to thrive, especially now that Denver keeps trading away all of the defensive players. Like, it's not looking good.
Or just flat out releasing them. It's a flat out mess there. But Austin, this might be a first for the show. You like another cheap tight end.
Yeah. So,
because you apparently are a glutton for punishment and don't know when you were wrong last week, my man.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, see, here's the thing. Good data practice tells you that you should just pay attention to outliers and ignore those outliers. And I think last week was an outlier for the Atlanta Falcons. I expect them to get eaten up by Cade Otton this week. It seems like a good price for him as well. He's $2,900 on DraftKings. So I threw this option out there. It's like, if you really need to save money, Cade Otton is there, right? He can give you that very, very cheap salary at the tight end spot. He's also $4,700 on FanDuel. And yeah, after last week, Atlanta moved from being one of the best matchups, like the number one matchup for tight ends, to the fifth best matchup for tight ends.
Yeah, we're still at that part of the season where one good game can shift things so much.
Yeah, and I don't expect them to continue the trend that they did last week. Why am I forgetting who they played last week? Because I watched that game and
Logan Thomas and the Commanders, because I was so in on Logan Thomas. So.
Here's the thing: the deal with the Commanders too, though, they have a really awful offensive line. And so they gave up 4 sacks to the Falcons, who didn't have a game with more than 1 sack yet this season, aside from that game. So I think that this was just the Falcons were able to disrupt the pocket. And so it made it hard for them to get the ball to our boy Logan Thomas. And also somebody that we're about to talk about had a big day over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, the only competition over the middle of the field for Cade Otton is Chris Godwin, which that's decent competition. But I do feel like Chris Godwin's been getting more downfield targets this year, and Cade Otton can still feast over the middle of the field.
Yeah. So Kelly, you not obviously because they can't see the show sheet like I can, but you also like Luke Musgrave. So I noticed, Austin gave us 2 cheap options at tight end, but I feel like with Luke Musgrave taking on the Denver Broncos, do you really need 2 options?
Maybe. Yes, always. I also love Musgrave this week. I will play all the tight ends, so just give them all to me, and we'll just stack them all up. Yeah. But yeah, Luke Musgrave. Keep in mind, I think, if rostership is part of your strategy, that he is on more than 20% of rosters guaranteed this week.
And that's, I saw that stat and my eyes popped out of my head. That's GPP rosters, or does it not differentiate?
I have not looked at specifically cash versus GPP.
Okay, I didn't know if it broke it down or if it just means
you know
all
what?
rosters.
I actually should start doing that for you.
Oh, you're fine. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just 1/5 of all rosters in tournaments. That seems rough.
In general, when we're looking at DFS rosters this week on DraftKings and on FanDuel, 20% plus for sure. Yeah. Because of this low salary range and because of the upside of 8+ fantasy points and the matchup, I think there's a lot of.
I hate to speak ill of my own stream of the week, but we've seen this kid bust in easy matchups before. I'm making myself nervous hearing these high rostership numbers. I feel like I'm going to change my own damn lineups because, spoiler alert, Luke Musgrave is in them.
I think he's going to be in a lot just because of that value.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But
and then Austin alluded to Curtis Samuel had a good game last week. So.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel is my other pick this week. He had a great game. This could be the 4th week in a row that Curtis Samuel scores a touchdown. Okay. If you haven't been keeping score, I know that I don't go and tally them up, but when I receive my notes from NFL Communications, I pay attention to some of these fun stats, and I'm like, man, 4 weeks in a row, Curtis Samuel could be scoring a touchdown here, projected for 10 points on DraftKings, 8.4 on FanDuel, mid-range rostership, extremely low salary. it's a little higher, obviously, on FanDuel because you get a higher salary cap. But for some reason, that number seems to be scaring people away because where we're looking at mid-range rostership on DraftKings at the 3.3K, or at 4K, that makes sense. But we're looking at 3% rostership on FanDuel when we bump that up to the 6.4K. Still very manageable.
Well, I love that you bring us those little tidbits from the NFL newsletter because you brought it up last week on Tyler Lockett continuing his, on the road 55-yard streak, and he went for 94 yards. So it obviously worked out quite well. So I love those little tidbits, and I think it's going to work out well again for Curtis Samuel. And you have to love his involvement in the running game too.
Yeah, I think he's been getting a lot more involvement. I think they're finding that groove, that trust. They have to find that person they gel with. And he's been consistent. That's the word I've been looking for, consistency. That's been a very favorite play for me. However, when I'm trying to get into these cash games with you guys, it's not working out so well for me, but
it's not. We're going to talk about that in just a second. You do much better on the show than you do in the contest. No, I'm joking.
It's true. It's true.
You also do very well with the prop bets. Speaking of which, we have reached prop quiz. I want to give a reminder to everyone, you can play DFS with us. Links are in the description. Also, anybody who dropped a question in the chat, we are going to hit those right at the end of the show, which we are getting very close to the end of. We are not going to ignore you. We are going to get those answered. But first, prop quiz brought to you by BetStamp. If you're not familiar with BetStamp, it funnels all of your betting and DFS needs into one place to help you get the best bang for your bet. You can find the link for BetStamp in the description. And what it's going to do is show you all of the DFS sites that are available in your state and help you redeem any offers that you would be able to get from those sites all in one nice, easy place. It can also help you with prop bets. And so can my friends. Austin, the sky finally fell last week.
Yeah, I've been alluding to this for a couple of weeks. I'd been hot for a while, up to 72% on my props on the show. I expected it to regress at some point, and last week I went 2 of 7, which brings me down to 25 of 39 on the year. Still at 64%, so still feeling good about that.
Yeah, more than respectable.
Yeah, I will say for this week, my favorite prop was taking the under on Mac Jones' passing yardage line. It started at 195.5 yards. It has already moved to 178.5 passing yards. And so I'm now
yards. Oh
yeah, I'm now off of it because it's moved too much. I can't keep taking the under. But instead I have some other fun lines for you. Also, first off, Cooper Kupp over 90.5 receiving yards on underdog. I think he's going to get pepper targets. It's a great opportunity for him. One for Cooper Kupp on Thrive Fantasy is over 26.5 yards for the longest reception. He has done this in both games since he returned. Let's make it 3 for 3.
Yeah, I like it.
Let's keep that streak alive. We alluded to this earlier. Kenneth Walker should smash this week, so I'm taking the over on 76.5 rushing yards. It's only on underdog. You can do a combo line on Thrive, but I prefer his line on underdog. We did not talk about this player, but Isaiah Pacheco is an interesting play for me this week. The Chargers have still been not great against the run, so his line is set at 62.5 rushing yards, which you can find both on underdog and Thrive. We talked about him. Luke Musgrave, we're taking his over as well. It's set at 34.5 on both underdog and Thrive. One player we did not talk about is Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, because he's appropriately priced now and we're all afraid. So.
I know, right? His rushing line on underdog right now is 48.5 rushing yards, which I get that the Eagles defense is fearsome, but the Miami offensive line has been absurd this year. Like watching them open up rushing lanes has been a work of art. So I'm just going to take the rushing over there. It's up to 49.5 on Thrive. I still like it there, but obviously prefer it on underdog since it's a little easier to attain. And then another Thrive exclusive pick so that you have 5 picks for Thrive if you're playing there this week is the Brian Robinson over 8.5 receiving yards. He's been killing it in the receiving game lately, and this just feels like way too low for a guy that's been getting 30 and 40 receiving yards per game.
Yeah, he's been doing everything we thought Antonio Gibson was going to do, basically. Yeah. So it hasn't worked out for AG truthers.
Being down on Antonio Gibson for the second consecutive year has been really nice for me.
It's worked out well for everybody who wasn't me. While Austin focuses on underdog and thrive. Kelly, you typically pull everything from DraftKings. Am I right in assuming these are DraftKings picks again?
I did underdog picks this week, but while we were talking, I did pull up a good little parlay for you on DraftKings.
Okay.
So it's called Club 50, but sometimes those disappear off the main screen and you can recreate it yourself because this happens to me all the time.
Okay.
But it is a 6-leg parlay called Club 50 because we're looking at receivers to get 50 or more receiving yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Puka Nacua. That could be your toughie, but they seem to have been splitting. Keenan Allen and DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I like
that. If DK and Puka might be the two questionable ones for me in this, just because of the share. But 50 yards on a reception is not that crazy. So I like it. Plus 504. You're going to make some dollars there.
Yeah, most of the people on that list could do that with a single catch.
Exactly. That's why I liked it. It's fun. I did hop over on to Underdog, and I found a little thing there. The spicy bet, which you guys informed me is only available on Apple on iPhone. But there's a spicy bet for Mark Andrews to score a touchdown.
It was actually Mark Andrews where we discovered the spicy bet. So.
It is so spicy. But yeah, so let's see. And it pays out, I believe it was 1.5 times. So I like those. Kenneth Walker III, higher than a rushing or receiving touchdown. So you just need him to score. Geno Smith, this is passing yards. I feel good. I feel like we've talked it up a lot. So let's see Geno Smith throw more than 254.5 passing yards. Christian Watson, more than 48.5 receiving yards. We didn't talk about him, but I did write about him in another article this week.
There you go.
And Isaiah Pacheco, higher than 14.5 rushing yards. We didn't touch on him too much. We've talked about him a little. I know that we've got not rushing yards, attempts. I know we've got the prop up there from Austin for more than 62.5 rushing yards. But mine are attempts.
Well, I was gonna say, if you take your attempts, his yards per carry, I think we hit Austin's yards and everybody's happy. So.
I think so. He's been doing, I believe it was he has had like 17 attempts. So I felt comfortable, like an average of 17 attempts. So feel good about that.
I like those. And guys, there's a lot of stuff we cover on this show. Kelly does you guys a nice little favor and puts this into article form. Look for that to drop on Saturday. We end the show with our valedictorian shootout. As Kelly alluded earlier in the show, Austin has been dominating 5-1. Last week he won 161-104. But Austin, my favorite thing that you noted in here is that you changed your own lineup, which we put the kibosh on a week ago, but you changed your own lineup when you imported it into DraftKings and you only got 139.4. If you had stuck with your original lineup, you would have won our contest last week. So.
Oh, dang. I probably wouldn't have even played it in our own contest, honestly. So that's probably wouldn't have worked out, but that's good to know. It's good to know.
Yeah, there you go.
But I threw this nugget in here because y'all gave me heck about it. I'm like, it doesn't always work out, y'all. Sometimes it just happens.
We're still not letting you change it because it's for the show and it's for the good of the entertainment. And folks, this is just these two creating a DraftKings lineup to go against each other. Eventually, Kelly's going to beat Austin, and we're all going to point at him and laugh, and it's going to be awesome. Austin, go ahead and give me your lineup this week, buddy.
Yeah, so for the question, even though I had the question mark behind his name, I'm starting out with Jordan Love as my quarterback at 5,800. Another 3 running back build. I've got Ken Walker the third at 7K. I threw Brian Robinson in here. We didn't talk about him today at 5,800, and then Donta Foreman at 4,800. And then for receiver, I went Cooper Kupp at 9,500. Jacoby Myers at 6,200. Loving the target share he's getting. And then Drake London at 5,100. Luke Musgrave as my tight end at 3,300. And we didn't talk about defenses on the show today, but the fact that the Baltimore Ravens are only 2,500 on DraftKings, even though they've performed pretty well. Like,
Yeah,
I love that price, especially because Jared Goff on the road, like,
still turns the ball over.
he's been better this year, I will admit, but
Yeah.
Baltimore's a hard place to play.
No, I like that a lot. Kelly, what you got for us?
First of all, I would like to call shenanigans on this 139.46 or 1 because the lineup he actually played, I'm showing at 105.44.
Oh no, he said he doesn't play any of those in the contest. So
this was
he's
my
saying
actual cash lineup from last
in
week.
his big tournament.
Hey, in our tournament, you only beat me by less than or like 1.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, just so everyone's aware, if you're new to the show, we have a few live viewers we've never had before. Kelly just straight up tells you the lineup she's going to be playing in the Club Fantasy tournament. So.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is look at my performance in our contest, in our show contest, to understand why I play
if
cash
you guys are
and not
concerned,
tournaments.
if you guys were concerned about, do I really want to get into a show or a tournament with the two hosts of a show? These guys have not done well. I have not announced their name as the winner one time. This is all in good fun. We're having a blast with it. They truly know what they're talking about. Hence, Austin 162 that he won't just play anywhere, but it's all in good fun. Kelly, what do you got for us this week on Draft?
Let me pull that up for you. The thing that makes me laugh is that I try and get cute when we get into
that's why you're not winning in cash.
That is why
that's a whole nother point.
Because I sit here and try and get cute. So let's see how cute we are this week. We're doing Geno Smith, Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Walker III, Tutu Atwell.
What?
Cooper Kupp.
Oh.
Christian Watson, Mark Andrews,
of course,
Luke Musgrave.
Oh my goodness. She said, give me all the tight ends, and she wasn't lying.
And a bargain basement Ravens defense at 2.5K on DraftKings, projected for 9.2 points, which is far the highest within that pricing tier.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but I like it because that's all the money I had left.
I got to go back and look at the sheet. You guys have agreed on defense so much this season when we've built these lineups. You guys can join the class, as I've mentioned a bunch of times. The links are in the description of this video. They're all linked in every DFS article we publish at clubfantasyffl.com. We have contests going on DraftKings and FanDuel. Last week on DraftKings, Josh Hudson, the _Hudsonian, the founder of Club Fantasy, takes down the tournament with 155.06. Takes solace, Josh, that Austin didn't play his best lineup against you. And Jay Malaga, hopefully I got your name right there, won the FanDuel tournament with 145.34. Folks, check the links in the description. Now, before I go to the questions, my co-hosts both have things they need to do tonight. So I'm going to ask you both. It is 6:49. Do you guys want to outro yourself, or do you want to try to answer? There's like 7 questions right now.
I'm actually going to need to go to work. I've been getting a little have you seen my distractedness?
No, you've done great. So it wasn't like last week where you completely lost where we were on the show sheet. So you did fantastic tonight. So,
Thanks,
Kelly,
everyone.
Thank you so much. Let everybody know where they can find you and find your work.
Yes, you can find me at Kelly and Phoenix on the app formerly known as Twitter. You'll find everything that I'm working on. Don't leave, though, because these guys can answer all of your questions, and I'll
Kelly,
catch
have
up
a wonderful
with you
night
next
and
week.
A wonderful weekend. Yep, absolutely. Austin, you good to hang out for a few minutes?
You got it.
Perfect. All right. So like I said, it's 6 questions going all the way back to the beginning. An actual DFS question from our buddy Elixirs. The Browns defense priced equal with the Washington Commanders and Green Bay Packers on Yahoo. Is this disrespectful to the Browns defense taking on the Indianapolis Colts, Austin?
A little bit. I think particularly given that Gardner Minshew just threw all sorts of interceptions and had all sorts of turnovers last week.
Yeah, 3 picks and a fumble, 4 total turnovers.
Yeah, he's still cashed. He still offered me cash, so it worked out. But yeah, I think this is not. I don't love this pricing. I mean, I guess like some of this is like they're on the road and they're going to be put in probably. I don't know. It's just Deshaun Watson playing. Like, I haven't Okay, so
oh wait, no, I'm sorry. He practiced in full today. He may still play. My apologies. Yes.
Okay, so he may still play. So I think I could see that. Like, I could see them baking in, like, assuming he didn't play, and they get in really bad situations because of that. I do feel like the Colts probably unleash Jonathan Taylor a little bit this week, but it does feel like if you're going now, I will say if you're playing tournaments, I probably would actually stick with the Commanders or the Packers because if people, a lot of tournament players will see the Browns defense priced that low and pick them.
There you go.
But in cash, I would go with the Browns. Now I don't play Yahoo, so I don't know all the salary rules and everything, but that's just kind of like my gut feel based off of my experience on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Very different salary structure from any of the other things. I think their salary cap is $100 and they do everything inside of that. Like it's very, very different. Our buddy Caesar, back to just some regular redraft fantasy football. He needs to start one player in his flex: DJ Moore, Breece Hall, or Brian Robinson. Who you got, Austin?
Did the Jets even play this week?
No, they're on bye. Wait, no, they play. Hold on a second.
No, they don't.
I'm confused. No, they don't. Yeah, they're definitely on bye, right?
They're on bye. So do not play Breece. DJ Moore. So DJ Moore, B-Rob. Oh boy, I do like
DJ Moore taking on the Raiders, but with Tyson Bagent at quarterback. And then we've talked Brian Robinson up in the show, and I actually like him this week taking on the Giants in New York.
Yeah, I like that matchup as well. I think he almost made my cash article. If he didn't, I can't remember at this point.
He just threw in, he meant Jahmyr Gibbs, not Breece Hall.
That explains a lot.
So Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Robinson, DJ Moore.
I'd probably still go Brian Robinson just because I feel like he has a more likelihood of falling into the end zone a couple of times. I still don't know how they're going to use Jahmyr Gibbs, even with David Montgomery out. Like they might just have another red zone running back that they have run between the tackles whose name is not Jahmyr Gibbs. So I've still preferred Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that exact same boat. I think I would go Brian Robinson. DJ Moore is interesting to me, especially if this is full PPR. I think he could see a lot of targets. I'm more concerned about him finding the end zone because I'm more concerned about the Bears finding the end zone, except maybe Dante Foreman. So. All right. Caesar also said, shout out to Alvin Kamara after that performance on Thursday Night Football. I wanted to get that up on the screen. Kamara actually in now 4 games leads NFL running backs in receptions. So I thought that was pretty incredible. That's how much they're checking down. New viewer, Gavin, should I trade Calvin Ridley and Aaron Jones for Breece Hall on this bye week?
I'm going to say if you're in Dynasty, maybe. I don't know that I would do this in redraft though. Like Aaron Jones, I feel like should come back and be pretty solid. Like he'll be an RB1, and Calvin Ridley, like he's still getting it targeted enough that he's a solid RB2 floor with an RB1 upside, or sorry, wide receiver 2 floor with wide receiver 1 upside. I don't feel like Breece Hall can make up for the production of both of those players combined. Obviously, it depends on your roster context. Like if you're set at wide receiver already, like have like, I don't know, let's say Cooper Kupp, like a Jacoby Myers, and maybe you're getting Deontay Johnson back from injury, then like, okay, maybe you make this trade. But straight up out of context, I would say probably not.
Yeah, I'm not liking this trade either. I do agree if it's Dynasty, you make this trade in a heartbeat. You got to recognize Calvin Ridley for what he is. He is a wide receiver 2 with upside, much like Austin said. The other thing is this is not the time to try to trade Calvin Ridley. His value could not be lower. The time to trade Calvin Ridley was after week 1. You obviously didn't do it. Maybe, hopefully you didn't pay up for him after that point. But you want to see what you get from Aaron Jones. I just don't know if Breece Hall is the upgrade, and it's certainly not the upgrade I'm going to make on a bye week where you've likely already played Calvin Ridley. You're going to play Aaron Jones this week. I don't know if you're forced into making this trade right now, but I would not make this trade regardless. Another new viewer, is it Chef Nanambi? I'm killing your name, and I apologize. But anyway, trade Evan Ingram and DJ Moore for Jalen Waddle. And I want to throw out here that literally just a week ago, people were asking about DJ Moore straight up for Jalen Waddle. And now we already have to throw pieces in to land Jalen Waddle on this one, Austin.
Yeah, I think, yes, I would do this. I feel pretty good about doing this just because like Jalen Waddle, like being in the Miami offense, pretty sick. And I mean, there's no telling how long it's going to take for Justin Fields to get his little finger back in place. Or was it a thumb? Was it a pointer finger or a thumb? Both are bad.
It's his thumb and its grip strength that is the problem for Justin Fields right now. So
yeah, that's not great, Bob.
No, we saw this issue with Marcus Mariota, and I'm not saying it's as bad as Mariota's, because from what I understand, Mariota never got feeling back in that hand. But this is the similar thing that we're dealing with.
I will say it depends a little bit on like how are you doing in your league right now? Like if you are, let's see, we're through 6 weeks. If you're 2-4, make this trade because you need production now, because you need wins now. If you're 4-2, maybe you see if you can hold out and wait a little bit. Maybe you don't need DJ Moore right now and you can wait till Justin Fields is healthy. So it depends a little bit on the context there. I think DJ Moore is so good that it's hard to trade him away. But for a guy like Jalen Waddle, I can make the argument.
Yeah, I was going to go with that route of it. I am trying to acquire Miami Dolphins, plain and simple. They are something else this season. Evan Ingram means nothing to me in this trade. Give me Jalen Waddle. Josh and I do a show every Monday. 2 weeks ago, we fought about Jalen Waddle for about a half an hour. It was not great content, but it was fun to fight with him about it. I am in on Jalen Waddle. He's out, but I would certainly make this trade. And it kind of lends itself to our next question coming in from Derek. When are we looking to get rid of Raheem Mostert with Devin Ashan projected to return in week 11? Austin, I'm going to answer first and let you dive in. I am not trading Miami Dolphins right now, plain and simple. If I'm a contending team, I'm not trading Miami Dolphins. However, if I'm not a contending team and someone's willing to pay me way too much to get Raheem Mostert, that's when I'm looking to trade him. When someone's willing to do something stupid for Raheem Mostert, that's when I'm looking to trade Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not selling Raheem Mostert. We've seen that he can do it even with Devon Achane in the lineup. If you're wanting to sell Mostert and you're like deep at running back, do it now. Don't wait till Achane comes back because that's when people are going to recognize that that value is sinking. But now like people would think, oh, I have 3 weeks of solid value for Mostert. So I would do it as soon as possible if you're doing it, but I'm not doing it.
That's a very good point. If you're going to do it, get off the chat and go trade him right now. Lex Plant Some Trees chimes in, wants to know, would we do DJ Moore or Deontay Johnson this week? Deontay coming off of the IR this week. DJ Moore dealing with a small school out of nowhere backup quarterback, Austin.
Yeah. So first off, love your name. I'm all here for planting trees. I would go Deontay Johnson just because seems like he should get the targets. A little nervous coming off of injury, but he's probably doing good. Like he's had time. They wouldn't be taking him off of IR if he wasn't ready to come back and play. And like Ryan alluded to, DJ Moore is getting Tyson Bagent thrown to him. Don't feel great about that this week. So let's go with Deontay.
I'm going to disagree with my co-host here. I am not ready to trust Deontay Johnson yet coming off of this IR. I love Deontay Johnson, but he wasn't doing all that great ahead of time. I think DJ Moore in full PPR is going to get peppered with targets. So that's what I'm looking for in this specific matchup. And Lex chimes in one more time. I think I can pretty well answer this one. If Deshaun Watson plays, should we drop Sam Howell to pick him up? I think we can start there with an emphatic no. Deshaun Watson has not been good. Sam Howell actually has a cupcake schedule if you look at his schedule for the rest of the season. But Austin, my question to you is, Jordan Love also available? Rest of season, Love's already had his bye. Howell has a week 13 bye. So you're dealing with a lot of like shiftiness there. Which one of these two quarterbacks do you prefer rest of season? Or are you going to surprise me and say you do want Deshaun Watson on this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased because I don't want Watson anywhere. I just don't want to pull for him from a fantasy perspective. I don't think he's been that good either. This one's tough between Howell and Love. I like Jordan Love as a quarterback. Like I feel optimistic about him from an NFL perspective, and that sometimes makes me biased towards him in fantasy football and trying to take that lens away. Sam Howell has more rushing upside in his game that it makes him more of a fantasy viable asset, whereas Jordan Love, like he's not running the ball a ton. Like he'll get in the end zone every now and then, but the fact that you have Kyler in the IR and he's about to be coming back from IR makes me say go just get Love as like a bye-week fill-in for right now. Like I feel like it seems like they might be trying to start Kyler this year, which honestly, the more I think about it, makes sense for them to figure out like what does he look like in this team? Yep. Should they keep him and trade away their high-end draft capital that they're going to have at the end of this year to like get more assets? Like they have decisions they have to actually make, and Kyler will answer some of the questions that they have to answer to make those decisions. So there's a good chance that he plays, and I feel better about the floor of Jordan Love than I do Sam Howell in the meantime.
I think that's such a great point. They're in a very similar situation to what Chicago Bears were in last year, because the Bears had these quarterbacks staring them in the face, but they needed to know if they were going to trade. And Justin Fields played for his job last year. Kyler Murray needs to get in here and play for his job. By the way, I'm on the Jordan Love side of this as well, specifically because you're trying to make a decision for this week. I like Hal this week. I love Jordan Love this week. I'm going to get Austin out of here before the side of the wall next to him collapses. I see you keep looking over there.
Yeah, there's some nice little lightning like shining.
Oh, gotcha. I was going to say, we're not catching any of it. I'm like, what is going on? Folks, you can find all of our content at clubfantasyffl.com. Austin, let them know where they can find you and the work you do.
Yeah, you can get me on Twitter, X at Austin_FFL. I tweet out all of my stuff there. And all of my work gets published at clubfantasyffl.com. I've got a DFS Cash article that comes out every week, and then every week I'm on this show.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys watching the show. We appreciate you chiming in. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'd also appreciate you just go ahead and hitting that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, means the world to us. And what it really comes down to, guys, is when your flex decisions are giving you seasonal depression, DFS is here to help. And that's what we're going to be here for. We'll see you guys at the next lesson. Have a great weekend.